Welcome to the Fantasy Football Report. I'm Blair Andrews, joined as always by Hasan and Kevin. How's it going, boys?
Good week of football. Or I guess mediocre week of football, but it's just enough to keep us going.
Get a little
Every
taste of
week's
some stuff.
every week's kind of been like a mediocre-ish week, I guess. But this week was better than the last. I think. Don't you guys think so?
Well, it depends how
Baby
many of
steps.
your teams had Bowers on them, right?
We're taking baby steps to a real enjoyable fantasy week. We can't get into it all at once.
No,
I don't think we can
no, no,
handle
no.
it
It's
this early season.
no, it's all there. There's like so many injuries that are piling up, though. So you just have to take the benefit and everything. Right?
Yeah, we. Do we have something to talk about on the injury front? There were, a lot of people played who, because people are injured and got into the box score in a pretty big way. We can talk about someone like Juwan Jennings. We can talk about someone like
Juwan Jennings would be like a tough one to talk about because
yeah.
what's your takeaway besides the fact that like Brandon Ayuk is just sort of just not it, right?
Well,
Like
that's
I'm
not my
happy,
takeaway.
like that's my takeaway. Like I'm happy he got paid, but they should probably be taking like a zero away from the right side of that paycheck, right? Like Debo's out, Kittle's out. You'd assume this would be like the Ayuk smash game,
Yep.
right? And like maybe someone who like grinds the film can tell me, oh, but like they were triple teaming Ayuk or whatever, right? Cool. But then why is he being paid like someone who can like overcome all of that? No, like it's like no wonder that like the Niners were slow playing this contract situation at all, right? Like he was like overdrafted, in my opinion, right? Like, and now that he actually has all that opportunity, right? Like maybe things change around, right? Because like what's his name? Debo's out next week. I believe he's out for a quote unquote a couple of weeks, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know how long. Like Kittle was doubtful, but like who knows if he's going to be back?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is how much does like obviously the offense is a lot different when you have no Kittle, no Debo, no McCaffrey. How much does that influence Ayuk's ability to do anything? Like you said, it was kind of a situation where he could be
But he's
triple
getting paid
teamed
like
and-
someone who should be like a. But he's getting paid like someone who should be like a franchise cornerstone, right?
I guess
Until
we
next
do
year,
kind of have an example of someone kind of like that. I don't know if he's in the show sheets, but I mean Malik Neighbors again is showing what you can do when you're the only game in town.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. And but like meanwhile, like Ayuk is getting cocked by Juwan Jennings, right?
Yeah,
12
right.
targets, 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 scores for like Jennings. Ayuk 10 targets, 5 catches, 48 yards.
Yeah.
Like realistically, if you're the Niners, like I'm sitting there thinking, what did I pay this guy for, right? Like this is what you paid him for, is to be like the guy in these like. And again, I know this sounds really hot takey, and I hate talking about other people's salaries, but like Ayuk put everyone through this like off-season drama where a lot of conversation was had, and has a perfect opportunity to like ostensibly back that up. I don't know. I mean, it's just like he was drafted as like the wide receiver 11, or like he should not be drafted there, right? Like he should be drafted like wide receiver 25, 26 maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been efficient throughout his career. I think it's just only a matter of time before he bounces back a little bit. And even like, Juwan Jennings has been having like this slow building up. He popped every once in a while last year. Then in the Super Bowl, he caught 2 touchdowns. So like, that he would never get the Super Bowl MVP if the 49ers would have won that. But still, he probably deserved it if he was like the best player for them. No, McCaffrey maybe, but like he was in the running, I guess, in the Super Bowl to be the be the MVP. And even this year, I mean, he's behind Debo and Kittle as far as PPR points so far, and he hasn't had any touchdowns until today. So, I mean, it's one of those things where like he's just the 49ers know how to develop players, and it's not like super surprising. I mean, he came into the league as like a nobody, and it's just been one of those developmental things. So I don't think he's going to like continue to explode this year, but at the same time, I don't think he's nothing, you know.
No, I mean, I'm with you. I don't think he's like not nothing, right? But like realistically, from like a fantasy perspective, like 1 week into like the Brandon Ayuk alpha receiver experiment, right? Like, like part of the reason why people were a little bearish on him was because he was going to get target squeezed, right? And now you can carve out a fairly robust part of the targets, and now he's not doing anything with them, right? Like, what happens when he gets squeezed again?
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, that's definitely fair. You know, maybe you can point to his presence on the field as being what opens up things for this sort of performance from Jennings, and in that sense, he's still valuable to the team, even though they ended up losing this game anyway. But
that's actually the funny part, right?
Yeah,
like you would get the Rams without like Cup, and like
right.
how did that happen? That was like, and it happened like in the end too, because I thought it was like going to be like a bore fest, like Rams are going to get rolled, and they didn't, which is kudos to them. But you know, a guy I do want to talk about, he's on the show sheet. He did make a lot of hay, and I think we can all like let's get a little hype. Like Rome Odunze, he got 6 of 11 targets for 112 yards, a score in the Bears week 3 loss to the Colts. Like, we're seeing why he was a number 9 pick, right? Like, he's like, he like ended up leading the Bears today in like receiving. Caleb Williams took a step forward. I mean, yeah, it is again like the Colts are kind of like this hot and cold team, but like pretty sick. I mean, it's unfortunate that Keenan is out, but it is impressive to see this big splash plays. Like apparently, like Caleb and like Odunze like had this like the first touchdown. They were fighting over the touchdown ball because it was both their first touchdown, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, but Odunze is showing like why people like he was the one where like he was mispriced, right? Like if anything, if you could go back in time, Ayuk should have been being drafted. Well, Kittle should have been drafted earlier, and Ayuk should have been sliding in around like a little bit earlier than like Odunze. But like it's sick that like Odunze is just smashing like that. You know what I mean? Like it's nice to see that step forward. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you saw glimmers of it, in the preseason stuff. I mean, it was clear that he had talent. I mean, and the biggest thing was just 49ers light situation, like across the board, because you had, Kmet, who's, whatever tight end, and then you have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and he was like the, that lower version of it. But like, I don't know. I thought there was always a chance that Odunze and Caleb coming in the league together could really like just start prospering together, and this could be possible. And who's to say that it's? I mean, I don't know if it's going to continue. It's probably going to be an up and down sort of thing all season long. But just as far as like in a dynasty perspective, it's super promising. And even the Kmet had a coming out party today too.
Hey, Komet is like Blair's guy. He like got carried us. Henry Muto, thanks for joining. He said that the dead zone RB Barkley not too shabby. We actually discussed Saquon a couple like actually after week 1 during our week 1 discussion today. Again, he kind of put the team on his back, and we were discussing this a little bit. It's sort of like this is one where like the spreadsheets got it kind of wrong. Maybe his efficiency does taper off because he's a little bit older. But again, like do what we were discussing, or at least if you guys want to continue the conversation, I'm more than happy to. But it's about like, a handful of guys have that true legendary upside profile, like as Pat Green likes to put it, right? Like the fact that like people were missing on Saquon is, I don't know, profile. Like it might just be like a process bust in a sense, right?
I'll admit that maybe I was dead wrong on Saquon. But I mean, at the same time, you saw him playing today. Like he hasn't looked that good on the field. When you watch him as a non-expert, amateur film grinder, not even really a grinder, for like, I don't know, since his rookie year. So this is a kind of a rejuvenated Saquon, maybe you would say it's something unexpected, but also I think there were not very good reasons to expect it necessarily. And I mean, as I say that, I know some people were drafting him in the first round, so obviously there were some signals, and I just missed them. But yeah,
I mean, Kevin, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, a lot of it hit the pro case for him was the Eagles' offensive line was a million times better than the Giants, and
Yeah.
that was like the big thing that people leaned on. But just historically, running backs going in their second contract or whatever you want to call it, because I think Saquon got hit with at least one franchise tag. So like, obviously it's not always the best bet, but I mean, it's like I said, what we saw from him the past couple of years wasn't anything to write home about. He looked kind of washed, but I mean, but so did the whole entire Giants offense. So
Yeah.
that was the hard, that was just the risk we had to take. And unfortunately, like I know I'm on the wrong side of that through 3 weeks. So I mean, it's just it's a bet that I would make again going forward. Just knowing that more times than not, we'll probably be on the right side of it.
Yeah, and to be fair, part of that is like he was going at like the 1-2 turn, right? And now you can build, and I have built a handful of best ball teams where like I chose Saquon as like my anchor RB, or call it what you will, right? Because the one thing we as a community are frankly very good at is knowing which running backs are actually very, very good, right? Like it's such a big difference. Like it's just all reflective in the ADP
because
right?
there's so few of them, right?
Yeah, there's like so few of these guys with this actual profile. You know what I mean? Like guys who will not leave the field, quote unquote, true 3-down backs and however you want to adjust it for this new era or whatever, right? And Saquon was being drafted there, and like I think part of it is like either you get like you luck into a Bijan or a Brees right early, or you really are in danger of getting like absolutely ruined by the wide receiver avalanche that was going through all offseason. Right? Like, and again, and this is not to like say anything like, like that, like Henry's wrong, right? Because I think he's got a point. Like he's not looking shabby at all. But like today, a lot of the early round like running backs kind of went off, right? Like JT went off, right? And we can discuss him. I had him on the show sheet, but took him off because there's a bet. And this is going to be a little tease, but there's a more interesting angle I want to take from that game, or the flip side of this game. But again, a lot of these guys might have been going off, and then if you look at what like HN now without Tua looks, it's just like a complete wasteland. Brees looked fine. He's kind of Braylon Allen is a real thorn in his side. Bijan still, is not exactly justifying that ADP, in my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But we know who these guys are. We know they're going to pay off big. I mean, it's kind of cool seeing Saquon look like this again. And again, to your point, Kevin, like the Giants have looked bad, and like the only guy on there who currently, and I hate going back to this, is like Malik Neighbors, right? Like he's looking like such a mensch. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hyped for the Eagles going forward, especially with AJ Brown back. I think the bigger question here is, do you guys think Saquon is able to keep this up a month from now, right? Because we can put a pin in this and revisit it a month from now.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just going. Maybe I'm relying too much on my priors, but I kind of want to say that I don't see him keeping this up for a month. But I realized that maybe I should revise my priors quicker and start believing in Saquon.
Yeah. And the one thing we got to remember too is, but he has a history of getting dinged up ankles and lower leg stuff over the last few years. Not to say we want to like jinx him with any of that sort of stuff, but I mean, there's enough, I think, of a history of that sort of stuff that it's not nothing. So I hope, I enjoy watching players do well. So even if it makes me look wrong, I will be happy to see him like continue this a month from now. But
the question really is, are you selling or buying right now on Saquon?
Man, that's tough, dude. Because I would be buying if I good, but like, at the same time, like when he looks this good, no one's selling.
Well,
Right?
if you drafted him, obviously you're not selling. So probably you're not selling. Like I probably would try to sell, but I don't
What are you
have him
looking
on
for in
any
exchange?
rosters.
What are you looking for in exchange, though, right? Because I have a friend
Yeah.
who was trying to trade in Dynasty, and he actually asked me, Saquon or JT for Dynasty? And I said JT, right? Dynasty. If you're paying the same iron price for both these guys, just go with JT.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, at that point, I don't even know if it makes a difference, right?
Yeah. Like, again, like these are all like the kind of profile of running back that you haven't come in the league in a while, right?
Do you
And
think, I mean, Saquon's what? How old is he? 26, 25?
I thought he was 28.
27.
Oh.
So you probably can't get more than a first for him in Dynasty, but
it's season long though. I mean, especially with the way that, not everybody looks at this like us. There's generally going to be people in your league who do not look at these things like us, and they see Saquon. Like, I don't think it'd be out of the realm of possibility. I mean, he's the running back 1-ish right now in season. Like, I've been asking for CD Lamb. Say like, hey, CD Lamb for Saquon, straight up. Like,
yeah, Lamb had a not that good a game, a lot of drops. Cash in on that.
I don't really know if you want to, but I don't think that's what you want to be doing with Saquon, right? If you're thinking of selling him.
Yeah.
Why would you not go with the Garrett Wilson plus experiment?
Yeah. I guess it depends on team context as well, too,
Yeah.
In our hypothetical team, like, if I was just going 1-for-1, I'd just be going for one of the elite receivers, but then also, you could get the 2-for-1 going where you come out on top.
Right.
Or why not Justin Jefferson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like a generational wealth kind of like mistake for people where they let him slide to like the 9th, 10th.
Man.
That one, like, is a key. Like, we're not. I know. None of these. For context to the listeners and the viewers, we have gone completely off the rails. We're 15 minutes into this, and like our show sheet, we barely used it.
There are no rails.
Yeah, like this is like if you had gone back in time a month, right? And you just said Sam Darnold will be starting for the Vikings against CJ Stroud. You would have been like, oh my God, the Texans are gonna completely roll them, and the Vikings completely curb stomp these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling Kevin before you hopped on that if you just go to the Monday review tool right now, which doesn't have the afternoon games in it, and look at the QB rankings for the season, Sam Darnold's the QB1.
It's like Sam Darnold, right? Yeah.
Like maybe Lamar Jackson will pass him after the game he had, but I think, it's could you have predicted Sam Darnold as the QB1 through 3 weeks?
As a QB1, maybe not the
Right?
QB1.
One time, right? Yeah.
Like I actually drafted him in Scott Fishbowl because it's a deep super flex league. Like he was probably, I don't know, 18th, 20th round pick. And I didn't even start him the first 2 weeks because I decided instead of starting him, like I'd put a wide receiver in my super flex rather than have Darnold play there. Big mistake.
I mean, realistically, it's like, and Justin Jefferson's doing this without Jordan Addison on the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is like the scary part, right? He had 8 targets, got 6 of those for 81 yards in the score, and he can only get more efficient from there because like they had really salted this game away. By like the third quarter, it was very obvious that they would win. Like even Aaron Jones had a big game on this one, but like anyway,
I just want to shout out Ross Durham, who was writing the streaming defense article. He didn't actually have the Vikings as one of his top ads, but I think he did have them as like a bonus DFS play. And just talking with him about the article, he was pretty high on the Vikings and kind of how well they could do against Stroud. So
yeah, I know they were ranked first, and a lot when I was trying to stream defenses this week and just kind of like clicking through on like ESPN and stuff, they were the number 1 ranked defense. But I said going against Stroud, no, and I passed up on them, and now I look kind of dumb. So actually, I wouldn't be surprised if we see something in the Monday Review article tomorrow about the Vikings defense, and if it's a defense we want to avoid starting players against going forward.
Mm.
Yeah, so let's go back to the discussion here a little bit on like the Texans, right? Because like Tank Dell, right? Like he caught 5 of 6 targets for 62 yards, right? Like he's kind of running like as a very decent wide receiver 3, right? Like he's unfortunately, I know he's coming off a pretty bad injury. He's had a fairly of a slow start to the season. So like, what are you guys like? Where are you guys like on a panic level meter of like 0 to 10? Where's your panic level on him, especially if you're drafting him at cost?
I'm not panicking yet. Like 62 yards isn't great on 6 targets. I mean, it's fine on 6 targets, but you do obviously like more. I think he still has that big playability. He still has that nice contingent upside in an offense that most weeks is going to be a lot better than this. I'm not panicking just yet, but I am a little concerned that he's like such a clear number 3 option. I was hoping the targets would be spread a little more evenly, for sure.
And I'm pretty sure I saw him on the sideline getting checked out today too. So I don't know if he got dinged up or not, or what his deal is. But I was looking the Monday review, and it looks like, I mean, all the guys between Diggs, Collins, and Dell, they all had ADOTs that were pretty low today. Collins had an 8 out of 10, and then Diggs and Tank Dell were a little bit over 8. So I mean, that's not. I don't think that maybe that was a little more of a result of maybe the Texans or the Vikings defense and what they were allowing them to do. We're really allowing them to get deep. So I mean, Dell was always more of a big play guy anyway. So like, I don't know, even seeing something like this where he's getting a bunch of short targets, maybe a little bit. I don't know, want to say like good for him, but I mean, just seeing him get some volume might not be super terrible. I think that it's just going to be what it always was, is it's going to be pretty up and down between who gets the volume on a week to week basis. And like best ball is the easiest way to do this, where you just kind of have a little bit of all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's such a cop out though. Right. Like, all right.
I'm still starting him. Yeah. I'm still starting him in all my leagues that I own him in, where I have to set lineups. So if that's a more solid answer.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to ride that, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, but I mean, especially because of the cost. But like,
yeah, historical anomalies has a good point, which we kind of touched on already. But just this, they're not going to face the Vikings defense every day, and this was obviously kind of a tougher matchup than it looked like on paper, maybe on paper is where it looked really tough. But
well, on paper it looked easy. Like in actuality, it looked tough. Like I'm still, I guess maybe it's just me, but like I'm still adjusting to the Vikings' defense being very good, right? Yeah. I think mentally I'm still not, I'm not there yet. Yeah. And I think that's that's a user error, right? That's not that's a me error. It's not an anybody else error, right? Yeah, I'm still optimistic on Tank. I also think, again, like given his injury that he suffered, I'm still optimistic that he's still gonna come on. Like you really do want him, frankly. Like as we head into the buys, like this is a guy who you had to pay the iron price on, because he makes, like, as we start seeing players, as we see your roster options contract. Like Tank's got the same Juwan Jennings 10.75-3 kind of stat line in him within his range of outcomes, right? Like, and that's what you want,
right?
The other interesting one, this is the only reason this guy's on our show sheet is because I was buying him last week and I got completely hosed. But DeAndre Hopkins got 6 of 7 targets for 73 yards in the score. In the loss to the Packers, like he led the Titans in targets, catches, receiving yards. The coaches actually were, to their credit, they were making a lot of noise about him being back and being, the guy. And they were making the same noise last week. And I kind of was like, this is the same gamesmanship. But no, they were on it. So again, partially, it seems like Will Levis, it hasn't, he kind of elevates Will Levis. So like, it's a two-part question, right? Like, how optimistic are you on like, and conversely, because of Hopkins, like Ridley did nothing, right? So like, how confident are you in like Hopkins going forward, and like, what's your temperature here on Levis?
Bad. It's all bad. At least as far as Levis goes.
Why did you affect a Tennessee accent to say that?
Well, I did looking at the advanced stats last week. I know that Ridley did have the most air yards out of all the receivers in the league so far. And now that Hopkins is looking a little better, it's like they're probably going to cannibalize each other, because I don't think Levis is good enough to support two good wide receivers. So I think it's just bad all around. I mean, it's going to be hard to predict which of those guys is going to pop on a week to week. And then, for a more exciting offense, you like the Texans, I don't feel so bad putting Tank Dell in there, just saying like, hey, this is a good offense. Whereas opposed if I'm throwing Titans in my roster on a week to week basis, like just hoping that's not very exciting, and it's actually pretty terrifying. So
yeah. Well, there's a few interesting. I mean, like again, there's some stuff here, but like we can go into the despair stuff, I think, because there is some stuff I do want to talk about here. Like Mark Andrews today, he failed to catch his only target today in the Ravens' week 3 win over the Cowboys. Like this is the first time since 2018 he's only been targeted once, right? If that wasn't bad enough, right? Consider that he wasn't targeted until there was less than 6 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Now, admittedly, some of that might just be Ravens game planning. So Blair, you can keep me honest here, right? But he also, according to Mike Clay, he's only played 20 of the snaps today. It's like 33% of the snaps, right? I don't know if there's like a lingering injury or something happening here, but like it's for folks who really bought in on like Mark Andrews like ahead of like some of the other folks out there, like what is realistically like your panic level here for both of you guys? And keeping in mind, yes, today's game was like an absolute blowout and Henry went completely off. But, I'm just like, I really am interested. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is important to keep in mind that Jackson threw only 15 passes. Yeah. Like, still, one target on 15 passes is not what you're hoping for from Mark Andrews. And I think it's right to be pretty concerned at this point. He's getting the same number of targets as Likely's out targeting him in many games. Today they both had one target. Charlie Kolar also had one target. So he actually looked good. Like he took it 30 yards.
That's great. I thought that was Andrews for a second too.
Like, that's exactly what I was.
I was like, they look kind of the same. Like
if only.
I was like, whoa, that's like Mark Andrews. He's back. Nope.
Nope. Yeah. So it's bad. I mean, it's pretty clear. I think even though you had Bateman tied for the team lead with 4 targets today, I think it's pretty clear that Flowers is kind of the guy here, and everyone else is taking a back seat. And there's not going to be most weeks enough volume to sustain multiple top end receivers. Like it's obvious that this team wants to run the ball as much as they can, and Dallas let them do it most of the game. So
that's very disappointing.
I mean, that's my take. I don't have
but I mean, I think that take is still fairly congruent. I think with like the Ravens are who we thought they were. Like you see. Yeah. Andrews and Laporta turned into old men. So Laporta actually is a guy we weren't going to talk about because like he did suffer an injury, but like, yeah, Joe, like that is a good point. Just like because like he did come back, which I think is big, but like then he had to leave again. We don't know what's going on over there. I'm just happy that he was able to come back after being carted off. I'm not too familiar with what's happening, so I don't want to speculate on that.
I thought I saw a sprained ankle.
Yeah.
But like sprain for these guys means anything, dude.
Yeah, right. We don't know the severity necessarily yet.
And he was out a couple times. Like I saw after he went back off, he came back on, so he was like back and forth quite a bit, I think.
I mean, also just keep in mind that these guys are absolute gladiators. Like I am very impressed with their ability to what they call a sprain is not what
Hmm.
I would think of as a sprain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, today, unfortunately, like this was like the Cards kind of at their worst, right? Like, it's nice to see them continuing to go back to Marvin Harrison Jr., but like the Cards didn't really put up much of like a fight. Like it was like they just kind of got like run off. Also, Trey McBride unfortunately left early because of a concussion, right? So like you're seeing, I think this was like the week where I feel like if you want to have like an elite D kind of discussion, you're seeing that like the injury rate amongst tight ends, it's not as high as running backs, but the risk is still there, especially when you're drafting these guys. And I still think the reward is there for you.
Yeah.
Right. But like, it's very difficult. I feel like this year, from like just like a perspective of like, well, Bowers was like right there. He was cheaper and he's still going, right? Like, but it does sort of underscore some of those like concerns that come with elite TE a little bit.
Yeah. I think the other guy who's worth talking about on this team, because he has the kind of dubious distinction of getting 20 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown without getting a target or a reception. Jahmyr Gibbs, how concerned are you that he wasn't really a factor in this passing game?
Very. Kevin, you first.
Well, he had that real nifty hook and ladder play.
Right. No, yeah, not a target, not a reception.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I haven't really watched the game. It seemed when I did watch, it seemed like he was still breaking up the long runs.
Yeah.
But like I said, it seems like there's just so many now with the emergence of Williams. It almost seems like that's really kind of what's really kind of clogging up that Detroit passing game, at least from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
They're doing all right on their own as far as winning games, but as far as, I mean, I think that's really seems like what is like his emergence is kind of coming at the cost of everybody else kind of like doing, exceeding expectations, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in this game, it was probably as much that as the fact that Goff only attempted 23 passes. But, yeah, like Williams didn't have a great game either. But, yeah, it's definitely, like, we could talk about kind of Laporta. Even before he got hurt, he was disappointing. Gibbs maybe not getting
get rolled up, yeah.
Right. Gibbs maybe
not
getting
at that point. Sorry.
Yeah, not getting the targets. I mean, what, assuming, I guess if Laporta misses some time, then maybe that changes your outlook for Gibbs and for Williams and for St. Brown all being able to produce.
Give or take, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if Laporta's back on the field next week and he's good to go, like, how are you approaching all the various pieces of this offense?
Well, one thing that was like similar to the Charlie Kohler, Mark Andrews dilemma that we had. Every time Brock Wright caught a pass, I thought it was Sam Laporta, and I was getting salty when I kept looking. And like in the first quarter, Brock Wright had 3 catches to Laporta's 1, and this is before anything ever happened to him rolling up his ankle. So, not great. I mean, I don't feel great about really starting. I mean, I'm on Ross St. Brown. I don't feel bad about because he's just going to catch all the short stuff. But even like Jameson Williams, I mean, 1 catch, 9 yards.
Yeah.
1 carry for -7 yards. Like I don't feel great starting really any of the Lions receivers, I should say, outside of St. Brown, and even his ceiling's kind of capped. Yeah.
Joking is right. Maybe JMO is a thing because Laporta has been hobbled since the start. Yeah, that was the one thing that I do want to touch on is that like only today did I see like there was like a report that came out that like the coaches have been like very nervous about like letting Laporta go because of a hammy issue that he suffered in like preseason.
Yeah.
And like, look, like I may not know how to read good, but there's, like I did not see that reported anywhere. And so it does, because like you would think that like the corresponding drop in his ADP would have been reflected, right? Because but like this wasn't necessarily reported. In fact, if anything, people were like drafting Laporta in the first, right? So like it's kind of was a little bit of a surprise hearing that, because like that's not the first, well, there's been a lot of injury fuckery, for lack of a better word, and I apologize for cursing, with involving a lot of star players like weeks before the season, right? Like we didn't hear about CMC, not Laporta, and there's a bunch of other guys as well who've been dealing with undisclosed items. And it's they don't have to give away their competitive edge, but at the same time, like, it is very unfortunate that these guys are out there fighting. Like, I mean, they're playing, and these coaches don't really necessarily care as much, right? So it's a little frustrating, just in general as a fan, because, like, again, like to Kevin's point earlier, we like seeing good players. We like seeing them do well. Like, it was what makes the NFL so special. Hopefully Sam Laporta is back. Hopefully McBride's back. But like, yeah, so it's frustrating. It's frustrating. This sign can't stop me. Yeah, exactly. That is right. Historical anomalies. I also can't read the speedometer, so I don't know how fast I'm going, and so it's just your guess. That one too. Speaking of continuous disappointments, Derek Carr, after the 2 weeks of the New Orleans Saints looking a lot like the Death Star, like today, I finally said enough's enough. I'm going to bench Caleb Williams in favor of Derek Carr. A move that has historically never ever paid off for me, starting Derek Carr. So I don't know why it would today. And shocker, it didn't pay off. Fortunately, Chris Olave, on the other hand, he caught 6 of his targets for 86 yards and a score. Right, like this is actually kind of cool, like to see Olave come back, because like Rashid Shaheed has been taking those long scores, and then like Kamara did all the damage. Like if we're gonna get like some semblance of joking Bears optimism, if we're gonna see some semblance of normalization, like Chris Olave should be ready to feast and like kind of pay off ADP, right?
Yeah, it was frustrating if you were watching this game that Olave wasn't involved more. Like, they still gave Kamara all these carries, even though he was mostly being bottled up. 3.3 yards per carry he averaged. You'd obviously love to see more of those targets go to Olave. I mean, he looked great most of the time when he was being targeted by Carr. So
yeah.
you kind of, as you're watching the game, you're thinking, why isn't he getting the ball more? I don't know.
I think a lot of it is like, and they just continue to run Kamara into like the strength of the Eagles' defense, which is their run game.
Yeah, and I remember seeing like right when Carr started in New Orleans last year, it seemed like he really wasn't targeting Olave right off the rip. I think he had like a wide receiver 1 week right in week 1 of last year, but then he kind of just tailed off for a while. And then it really wasn't until Jameis Winston came in that he really started picking back up. And then once Carr came back, he kind of picked up a little bit. So even after week 1 of this year, I was kind of like, like Chris Olave's got a Derek Carr problem, but I thought Olave's actually looked really good over the last 2 weeks, considering like what my priors were on it, even if they were right. I don't know. It's not really factually based. It's just like the gut feeling sort of thing. So, I mean, I thought he almost had that touchdown last week. I think he got stopped at the 1. So overall, pretty optimistic on Olave, more so than like those feelings that I had that like Derek Carr was not good for him. Actually, I'm like, so due to my priors, I'm actually pretty excited about Olave going forward. And then also I wanted to say, like when I wrote up the Saints offense for the Monday review last week, like Derek Carr definitely looked unsustainable because he had the lowest pass attempts of any quarterback who started 2 games. And yet he was like the QB2 behind Baker Mayfield, or even QB1, I think, in some formats. So like, it's like, we can't, expect this to continue. And today he threw 25 passes, which was the most that he threw all year. So, and he kind of just, he Derek Carr'd pretty hard. So
yeah. Baker Mayfield, another guy who was humbled today. But that's not who we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about all the Rachaad White slappies. Because Bucky Irving rushed 9 times for 70 yards today in the Bucs' week 3 loss to the Broncos. He also caught 3 passes for 14 yards. Irving has basically now outrushed Rachaad White in all 3 games this season, like across a variety of game scripts. Like he isn't like the Bucs haven't really forced White out of the mix on early downs, right? But like how much longer until this is like a 60-40 split in Irving's favor?
Yeah. Irving also had almost as many receiving yards as White on half the targets. Like, it's not only in the running game, which it had been up until now, but now we're seeing it's not like Irving was good as a receiver, but White was just so bad.
Yeah, and that's sort of been the thing, is that like White hasn't been good as his workhorse.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he worked in his rookie year as like a change of pace option for, I can't remember, was it Leonard Fournette? That doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh my God, I am old as hell.
Yeah,
Keyshawn Vaughn,
like it was
Keyshawn Vaughn, this is
20
Keyshawn
years
Vaughn
ago or
experiment. Yeah,
Because it feels like Fournette hasn't been good since he was a Jag, right? And save for that 1 year where like Brady was like the quarterback for the Bucs, but again, like Rachaad White worked as a change of pace guy, and like he's kind of like flopped tremendously as like this like workhorse guy, right? And so like, how long until they actually do start figuring out like, hey, Rachaad White really is he's better off in this like lightning role than the thunder role, and realistically, it's kind of almost like a lightning situation with these two guys. And so like, I don't know I don't know what's going through the Bucs' head, but like, they were like handily beaten today by like the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix kind of in style put it on. On the other hand, unfortunately, Javonte Williams, he's looked like awful, right? Like Javonte, he rushed 5 times for 12 yards. Like, he also caught 4 passes for 29 yards, but like, he also lost a fumble, and like Tyler Beatty got all the closeout work. Right, like, it's not great. Who, Beatty? Yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about Beatty, right? Like, because like, realistically, they were beating the brakes off the Bucs.
Yeah, but they've been using him all year, I think. He's been getting touches all season.
He has. And so I'm worried because you got Jaleel, who's like an actually good talent, right? Squeezing him, and now Beatty's coming in on the other hand. So what on earth, guys?
And
like Williams
on the ground.
Yeah, well, yeah, but like we know that's why we know Bo Nix is capable of doing that.
Yeah,
right. Like, that's kind of what like his thesis was. Yeah. Right. Like, I feel like today was like they just let Bo Nix do like play more comfort, like what he would be used to. Like, he's not going to be great, but like at least he doesn't look like the disaster he has the first 2 games. But I'm concerned about Javonte.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is always a possibility, because even like, Sean Payton back in his New Orleans days, Pierre Thomas like came out of nowhere. I'm pretty sure they had somebody in front of him. Well, and a lot of the times, I mean, he's almost like a Kyle Shanahan light, you might want to say, or Shanahan. Maybe he's just a stepson of Shanahan or something, because literally he doesn't care about draft capital or anything. He pulls guys from wherever. So like, that's why there was a big Blake Watson push on the site this off season, because like, hey, any of these guys can pop. And Peyton doesn't really care who it is. He's just going to play whoever he wants. He seems like he's one of those, like, he just doesn't care, like whoever he wants to play, he's going to play. And just that offense, he's proven that they can produce whoever's on the field, except for if your name's Javonte Williams.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I do think this is partially like a talent issue, right? Like you would think Peyton would just play his best guys and keep them going, but like, it's probably just that like who we thought Javonte could be or is maybe isn't that guy, right?
Yeah, Javonte hasn't had a good game really at all this season.
Oh no, he's had the exact opposite. He's lost 2 weeks. If you were counting on him at all, right?
23 yards in week 1 is his best rushing performance. So, I mean, from that perspective, I guess you can't really blame Peyton for wanting to go a different direction.
No, and especially
Boston
when you
wasn't good in this game either, except he did get a touchdown.
Yeah, and that'll say every day. But like, realistically, if you've got Bo Nix taking 9 carries, right, then what is left over?
Yeah.
Right. Like Bo Nix is taking 9 carries, right? Like, and that's tough scene for everybody, right? Like, if Bo Nix is basically going to go like the Josh Allen-ish route or like the Lamar Jackson route, where like Like, how much is really going to be left over, right?
Do you think Javonte still has like fantasy value if he's just going to be getting like the receiving work? Like, suppose
Yes.
Beatty comes in and just gets all the carries, and they move Javonte to basically like a receiver out of the backfield role. Is that okay for him?
I would think so. I actually kind of prefer that. I like, especially if you're playing PPR, not going half PPR or like standard. But
yeah, I mean, you still have probably McLaughlin sometimes getting those. You still have. We had a Troy Franklin sighting today. He actually got 5 targets and was pretty bad on those 5 targets. But like, I don't know. Is he going to start getting more work? Probably not. This is probably just 1 week, but I still hope.
Yeah. I think they'll.
Hey,
he'll throw the 26-year-old rookie back in because he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Devon Vele whenever
Right.
he comes back.
Right.
26 turning 27. But yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with like Bo Nix's accuracy issues, right? Like Sutton kind of makes sense for them, but also like how much do you really trust anybody behind Sutton, right? Like Sutton's actually good at football. Yeah. He's better than everybody else. He's better than Jordan Humphrey and Josh Reynolds, right? Like
he's the best they got.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yeah, and another guy confirmed good at football, Andy Dalton. He completed 26 of 37 passes for 319 yards and 3 scores today, right? Like, and he was like pretty much there the whole time. Like, goddamn, I didn't think the Panthers had this in them. Like, I think now into the first half, Andy Dalton has now thrown for like about 30% of Bryce Young's total career touchdown total. Like that's crazy, right? To the first half, right? The offense did flow through Deontay Johnson. He had like 14 targets. Also nice to see Xavier Leggett getting into the mix. And joking is right. Chuba with the Undertaker gif, right? Like this offense is all of a sudden under Dalton. I mean, it's 1 week. Caveats, everything else, right? But like we haven't seen the Panthers look this good in a very long time.
Jake Delhomme or something, right?
No, since Cam was there, right? Like, and Cam had those like games, but Cam's also a little different because of who he is. But like, this is kind of hype a little bit, right? Like, what are your expectations now for this offense going forward? Today, like they said that they were putting Bryce Young. He's going to start again sometime this year. He's probably like in a timeout. So I do want to get your guys' take on what does that mean?
I don't know. I mean, watching this, I was kind of wondering if Canales literally just either went to the GM or the owner and just literally said like Bryce Young is trash. Like I cannot win with this guy, and I need him to sit before I lose my job. Like that's.
I'm sure it's the other way around though. I'm sure it's the other because Tepper is very hands on, right? Like everyone has said that. I'm sure it was more like the other way around.
You said get him out of there.
Well, no, I would think that the way you'd put it to someone like Tepper is make it seem like it's his idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and again, like that's fine because. I'm sure Tepper wants us to be a good team, and I'm sure he's still, in the process of actually learning how this stuff works, especially if he wants to be a hands-on owner. And quite frankly, like if this is what it takes for them to win, then I guess this is an interesting question. I guess I got for you guys. Would you rather want to win out as the Panthers, right, or would you rather lose out and just get another quarterback?
I mean, I guess it depends on the egos that are involved.
Yeah.
Sitting on the outside would be like, hey, we already know that Bryce Young isn't it. Like, we need to get another quarterback. And I don't really know enough about the quarterback class this year. If like Carson Beck is, that's the name that I've heard that he's top, or like Cam Ward, I've heard is doing really well, but I'm not a big
Shedeur Sanders.
Shedeur Sanders. But like, I don't know if any of those guys I feel like some of them would be better than Young, but I mean that would be my my opinion, as an outsider that doesn't have billions of dollars invested in this, is like, hey, like let's just clean the slate and start over.
I'm sure though at some base level he wants to see wins and some kind of level of like competency, right? Like, is your roster really bad? Is your roster actually bad, or is it Bryce Young bad, right? And clearly at this point it feels like, yeah, it might just be the Bryce Young issue. Like the only thing Bryce Young has proven to be good at is taking the S2 cognition test. Right? everything else from there has been downhill. Right?
I mean, I think the roster is pretty bad too. When you're talking about
yeah, I mean, like
Johnson leading the. I mean, like Johnson's good, but we're talking about a washed Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, who was probably overdrafted in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but maybe Xavier Legette can turn it around
as the second leading target.
But also
still, we're not talking about.
Miles Sanders got like the lone rushing touchdown, but it also says a lot more about like the Vegas Raiders, right? Like here you are, guys, getting completely carved up, right? And so like that's like an interesting deck. Like I believe Gardner Minshew today was
they've
benched,
got roster
right?
issues too.
Yeah. Zamir. I mean, like walking into like the season with Zamir White as your starting running back, not great. Devontae Adams, 9 targets, four catches, 40 yards, not great. Brock Bowers, 3 for 41 on 4 targets. A little bit better. I don't understand the Trey Tucker and Jacoby Myers usage over Bowers. Like that will not. That doesn't sit well with me. It shouldn't sit well if you're a Raiders fan, because like at this point, like you want to see a little bit. Like if anything else is already a lost season. Like you're walking into the season, but like Gardner Minshew under center, guys, like come on, right?
Did Minshew get hurt in this game, or did he just get benched?
What does it matter?
I guess I want to know whether Minshew might start again next week or not.
Yeah,
I think it looks like it was a benching.
Yeah,
I mean, you're already like lost, right?
When you're losing to the Panthers, you deserve it.
Yeah, we'll leave it to the Raiders to find something that works and then stop doing it. They said, "Oh, we've been doing. Brock Bowers has been killing it. Let's just not throw him the ball." Let's get our 4th rounder from last year involved.
And their big marquee free agent signing in Jacoby Myers, who lost his job, I believe, to Demario Douglas.
Something like that.
I mean, Jacoby Myers' name just isn't as cool as Demario Douglas is. That's all. That's the issue, man. Demario Douglas. That's a cool name.
Mm-hmm.
Double D. He should have like a Guy Fieri Triple D celebration in the end zone.
Yeah. If he made more trips to the end zone, maybe he would.
Yeah.
Hey, Drake May's taken over. Maybe he will hang out in the end zone a little bit more. But let's close out this week. I know we touched a little bit on JT, but this is the guy who we teased way back. It's Anthony Richardson, man. He completed 10 of 20 passes for 167 yards, no scores, and like 2 ints today in their 21-16 weekly win over the Bears. He also had 8 rushes for 24 yards. Like he remains really bad at throwing the football and those like in the short to intermediate fields, right? And he was unable to really like compensate with any touchdowns, right? He also got stuffed sort of on that goal line, right? He took a big shot. Seems to be okay, but like after like the week 1 Insta victory laps again, which I'm a big fan of, Adonai Mitchell had probably a drop. Like I'm a big fan of like the early week 1 victory laps, but like I'm really getting the sense that like Anthony Richardson might just be like less talented Justin Fields, man, and that's not good. Right, like I don't think he's like without the rushing scores and everything else that comes with it. Like everyone was like, he's not like a Lamar level talent.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's the difference, because like you still need to be able to throw the football to like rack up those 300 plus point end of season stuff. Right. Like I don't know. Like so, I guess where do you guys think? I mean, he'll be fine this season probably, but like, where do you think he's drafted next year? He's not going to be a QB 6 or 7. bigger RG3. Good, that's a good comp, joking. It's like, where do you think he's drafted next season? Right.
Ooh, I mean, probably. Well, if we're talking like best ball, or are you just talking about like QB rank in general? I mean,
Typically they kind of mirror each other anyway. So best ball
Yeah.
probably.
well, I was thinking like I'd be happier where he was maybe like a 6th round, 5th round guy this year. I mean, maybe like a QB2 on like a high upside rushing spike week QB2 and like a 2 QB in the window build in best balls, like the immediate thing that comes to my mind. I don't know if I don't know if I would draft him as my starting quarterback, like in a home league where I'm generally only going to be rostering one guy.
Yeah.
You know, like it's rough, and I was one of his biggest proponents. Like, hey, like it's cool, we'll be fine. Like he'll run enough, and I haven't watched this game yet today, but the parts that I saw were pretty bad. So
Yeah.
even I'm starting to kind of like back off and like on him going forward until he shows something better.
It would kind of be okay to have a passing game like this if he were also rushing for like 80 yards or something. Then you could almost live with this
Well,
kind
yeah,
of game. I mean, that's
that's
still
kinda-
not Lamar because Lamar gives you, 80 yards rushing and 2 passing touchdowns. But
Right. Like he's not just giving you 8 points.
right. But I
Like-
mean, with this kind of performance, I don't know. Like, can you even take him? Well, that's not really fair. But like, he obviously can pass the ball better than this. This was a pretty poor game,
Yeah.
but he has never been a guy who like completes a lot of passes or hits a lot of passes. So I think the Justin Fields comp is a good one, and we've seen that he can be a useful fantasy asset, but I mean, the question is always consistency. Like, it makes sense in best ball. And there, I think, I don't know, if you knew Justin Fields were going to be starting the whole season, would you have drafted him in the 10th round?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the same thing with Richardson. Like next
Yeah.
season, that same sort of like he can have those spike weeks, but
Yeah.
good luck,
And
pointing them out.
yeah, for anyone on the stream who's watching me like looking on the side, it's just because my computer's completely locked up and I'm trying to pull up a box score here. It's a guy who I wanted to talk about. He's on the show sheet, but it's Zach Charbonnet, 18 carries, 91 yards, 2 scores. Also 3 for 4 receiving for 16 yards. Is it happening? Is it happening?
Well,
Is
better
the
not be
50-50
happening
split happening?
at the expense of JSN happening, which is kind of what
Well, today was just
what it
like,
looked like today.
yeah. Well, Skylar Thompson's Miami Dolphins weren't really putting up much of an opposition, and they're probably no longer Skylar Thompson's Miami Dolphins after today, I believe.
Right. Tim Boyle coming in, also looking even worse than Skylar, right?
Yeah, because Skylar got hurt. But like for a team that had Super Bowl aspirations, kind of negligent to not really have a better backup quarterback than Skylar and or Tim Boyle. I wonder what Andy Dalton could have done. But like it's just one of those situations. I mean, like realistically, and the reason I'm asking, I brought this game up, not necessarily like victory lap sharps. It's more or less a question of Waddle and Hill without Tua under center. Where are you ranking them?
Yeah.
I don't think they're top 30 options.
Would you have them above Smith and Jigba?
With Gino under center?
Yeah.
Hill, yes. Waddle, no.
I'd probably say yes on both of them. Honestly, the way things have been going for JSN so far.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? I mean, like JSN looked fine in a game where they had to actually throw the ball. So I'm just pushing a little bit on that, Kevin. I want to hear why.
I think it's just overall explosiveness and talent. I mean, I just think that they're obviously Miami's just gonna keep targeting them in the short area of the field. So maybe they can turn small passes into big gains a little easier than JSN. I mean, I hope it's JSN, or I don't know. I don't know how I feel about saying that, but
I feel like that's the argument for Hill, right? I don't
Yeah.
think Waddle is the same guy, right? Like I don't think they're like 1-to-1. Like I think Hill,
Mhm.
you can make the argument for that he just needs a break. I think Waddle is a little bit different in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I mean, by the same token, like Seattle did have 34 pass attempts in this game, and Smith and Jigba only had 3 targets. Like, it is looking like kind of, we saw his target spike last week, but that's not something you can count on. We saw Lockett get back into he had 8 targets today, leading the team. So it's like, the JSN breakout is not going to be as smooth as we hoped after last week. And Hill in particular, and probably Waddle as well, given just his kind of speed, can take a pass to the house almost any time. So you kind of are weighing that big play ability against because I don't know if we would say JSN has that same kind of talent. He's more of the slot guy, short area targets, doesn't win with speed the same way Hill and Waddle do, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Ross asks, I traded Derrick Henry for Josh Jacobs last week and it lost me the week. Am I cooked? No, you're not. So today the Cowboys couldn't stop Henry, right? They just couldn't stop him. He was getting everything basically, and we know that's Henry. When he gets rolling, he gets rolling. And then on the other hand, you had Malik Willis who actually rushed for a touchdown that could have been a Jacobs touchdown. Right? There's going to be weeks where it's going to not be Henry, it's going to be Lamar. And we've already seen them in negative script against the Chiefs put in Justice Hill. Today we saw them use Emmanuel Wilson quite a bit, which I do think is a very sneaky pickup in leagues, especially with Marshawn Lloyd not making much of an impact. He's a good guy to get, especially because we know Dylan's out. But I do think that Henry, it's not feasible to expect him to put up 30-point weeks every week. He's only doing this against us in a league that we desperately need to win in FFPC, and of course he does this against us. So yeah. But for the most part, I don't know if you guys agree with me on this or not. But to me, it's 6-half and the other. I think when Jordan Love comes back, you're going to see more targets there for Jacobs, more rush attempts for Jacobs, and Malik Willis. There's going to be less of that ball string going around.
Yeah, I largely agree. I think that by the end of the season, I would bet on Henry to have outscored Josh Jacobs on a fantasy basis, but I don't think it's going to be as
it's not
certainly not as drastic as it was today.
No, it's not going to be this meaningful. The other thing is if the Ravens face an opponent that forces them to actually throw the ball, you're going to see a lot more Justice Hill like they did against the Chiefs. They just
right.
Even in neutral script, they were using Hill, right? They just mothballed Henry, and that was that, right? And today, the Ravens were not in any threat. The final scoreline looks a lot closer than it was.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I think they were up 28-3 at the half, and they didn't score again at all. They didn't need to.
They were up 28-3 in the fourth quarter.
Right, yeah. So all of this game, because they didn't care.
Or 28-6 in the fourth quarter or something.
Right, yeah,
like
it was 20. 2 field goals, right? The Ravens were just so much better than the Cowboys. Right. And when you play the Ravens when they're up this big, you and I have talked about this, Blair. They just this is how the Ravens want to play. They just love bullying teams when they get up. Because they just bleed clock, man. They play this boring smash mouth football where which is a good way to win games. Score the points and then just bleed away the clock, right? How hard could it be?
Well, it's also the case that that's how they want to win the game in the first place, right?
Right.
You don't want to just run with Derrick Henry all the time. I guess they would want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and why would they want to get in foot races, right? They've got the pieces to keep up, but why would they?
Because they wouldn't let teams back in the game like they did today.
I know, right? All this says to me is that they just need a lot more Zay Flowers in their lives.
Agreed.
Yeah, tight ends wouldn't be too shabby either.
Yeah.
Which one? Which one?
Any of them except for Charlie
Either
Kohler.
at this point. Yeah.
Not great value, Mark Andrews. We need the real thing.
Yeah.
I hope he's good though. Like, I hope he's like healthy, because
Yeah.
it would really like
Yeah.
sadden me. It would really sadden me if he's like another like injury that we're gonna find out about in like weeks, and it's just like,
We did have that car accident that he was in, like, and that was the big thing that he was held out in the preseason. But
Right.
well, yeah, but like it's also like if they're making him play after he like went through a very like a scary situation, like a car accident, and he's like still like feeling some kind of effects, it would be really sad as a fan to
That's
watch.
true too, yeah.
To watch, like, to make this guy go out and exercise for everyone to watch. Like I'm a fan. Like I'm a fan of these players. Like I want them to be at their best because they do what, you know, they put their bodies in the line week in, week out for like a guy like Mai's entertainment, right? Like
yeah.
like
So
why don't you want to see
weekly case study into PTSD.
yeah.
I'm assuming you guys aren't starting Mark Andrews if you have him.
But who would you play instead of him though?
That's kind of the question. Like, tight end is a wasteland anyway, so maybe
It's difficult.
hope that Andrews can get a touchdown pass. But I mean, because you can't start like Charlie Kohler.
No, but like Komet, if he's still around, maybe, because the Komet was like, what
there's
was he,
no
like
way.
tied in 28, 29 or something like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe Komet, like Juwan Johnson's kind of not useful. I was trying to think, like Hunter Henry also kind of like faded away. Tyler Conklin's not going to be available.
Colby
Yeah.
Parkinson or something. Like he
Who?
had
Yeah.
5 targets.
It seems like
Maybe
Foster
John-
Moreau might be like the
Foster
tight
Moore
end
might
one.
actually be a thing. Yeah, he might be a thing
actually
again.
be the tight end one in New Orleans.
Trying to think, maybe Dawson Knox. Like
Kyle Pitts has 50 yards.
Hey,
on one catch though, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Are you starting
so-
Kyle Pitts?
so he's great in standard leagues then.
mhm.
Yeah.
Just trying to. I mean, I am still buzzing to that question, right? Like, who would you play? Like, if you had to like replace
If you
Mark
had
Andrews,
Mark
Yeah.
Andrews and you were trying to place him, what do you do? Or do you just ride out Andrews and hope that he picks it up somehow?
actually,
That's where I would go.
this
I'd
sounds
rather
like a
weather the
great-
storm. Yeah,
well, this sounds like a great question for our Shanta streaming app. Time. Like,
How
we
does-
should see.
How does the schedule look? Let me see. They play Cincinnati in week 5, I think.
No, but like,
week 6. I can't
what
remember
does
week
the
4.
streaming app have for like tight ends next week?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Baltimore schedule.
Someone tweeted that Andrews ran for us. No, well, I don't think that's right. Historical anomalies. I think that's probably a question. But like he played 20% of the snaps. Maybe he only did run for us. But like again in a game where they didn't have to
I
do
didn't
very
see
much.
him a lot on the field.
Yeah. And maybe he is hurt, right? Like worse than
Yeah.
they're letting on. Which again would be like a real issue that I have because like the NFL is at its best when all of these guys are playing. You're already seeing like the natural attrition coming to guys like Kittle and Debo getting hurt, unfortunately, in games, Laporta getting hurt, and then then you already lose out on talented guys like CMC and everything else. So it's like,
Yeah.
like so what is the story here? Gonna see what we have here. All right, so according to this, and this being our strength of schedule streaming app, where is Baltimore? Yeah, it looks like it's a middle of the road matchup against Buffalo.
Right.
I guess maybe Detroit, right? Because apparently Seattle's weak against the tight end. If like Laporta misses time, maybe you could stream Brock Wright for a week.
Oof.
Yeah.
I did find it
Oh my-
on Twitter that it says Mike Clay posted that he only played 20 snaps today, 33 snap percent, so 33%.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier.
No.
Johnny Munt, maybe from Minnesota, if he's available. Man, these are really. This is such a sad note to go out on. Going out on playing Johnny Munt instead of like Mark Andrews. We're not going on that.
So, I'm looking at a site that does have routes listed already. They have Andrews at six routes.
Oof.
Oh wow! Well, he didn't even get any exercise in today. All right, we're not going on this out on this depressing note, guys. Tomorrow,
Kohler only
doubleheader.
ran 3, but one of them was a catch for 30 yards. So
Munt was popular in
Better
DFS
than
for a
Andrews.
TD. Yeah, he did. But tomorrow night, guys, we're not talking about. We're going out on back at tight ends. No. Tomorrow, doubleheader. Jags, Bills, Commanders, Bengals. What are we excited about from either game?
You got to be excited about Jaden Daniels. Hopefully he can find some of his receivers finally. Big De'Ami Brown breakout, right? Big Terry McLaurin 2024 breakout would be nice. And I think you're hoping for a lot of Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, you kind of are. I'm kind of optimistic. Our Strength of Schedule streaming app. Hang on, just because I have this thing open now, might as well just stick with it. It has wide receiver as the worst matchup, like the second worst matchup of the week for Jacksonville. So good luck, Brian Thomas Jr. But realistically, for me personally, I'm kind of hyped on the as you mentioned, Jaden Daniels, but kind of like the return of T. Higgins. I think that's kind of exciting for me personally.
Right.
Just because for no other reason than like I get to either tweet low T. Higgins when he does nothing as I'm coping about all my teams that have him, or I actually have some value being returned as he does well, or optimistically Jamar does well.
Yeah.
Or someone like any of the various non-Zach Moss players start providing something to these like teams because it's not good. It's not good. Kevin.
Yeah,
well, Washington's secondary is the team for that, right?
That's where I was going with that. Yeah, I'm most hyped about the Bengals. I mean, I have plenty of Jamar Chase across like all formats, so I'm really waiting for that one to take off, and just that Bengal. And Joe Burrow's always been one of the guys that I like a lot too. And then obviously Higgins coming back, and just talked about Chase Brown. Put an article about Chase Brown versus Zach Moss.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one, by the way. Everyone should go and read it.
So just the Bengals in general. I mean, I think that game's going to be really fun. I'm not super excited about Jacksonville, but that other game. But
the issue is Jacksonville, right? Like how long did that coaching staff get? Because they've been like completely lost at sea.
Yeah, the Doug Peterson Super Bowl is a long, long time ago now.
Wait, really? When did he make the Super Bowl?
With
the
what year?
Special?
Yeah.
Oh, the Philly special.
Yeah.
2000 could be 17, 18, 19. One of
those.
those.
The Philly special was a while ago, but yeah, that was. I didn't realize that was Doug Peterson. His own team has no idea what they're doing. I mean, Dalton Kincaid, obviously, James Cook, and then maybe like I don't know. Like I am excited that it's on. But yeah, I'm definitely I'm optimistic that Jaden Daniels can make it more of a game on the second one.
Yeah, that should be good.
And I'm hoping that he just stays healthy, and I hope they let him run a little bit more. Yeah. He's a pretty electric talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, good spot to end it. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe, and check us out on the podcast channel. You can also get a 10% subscription, a 10% discount to a RotoViz subscription. Still on the podcast homepage or by using the code RVRadio 2024. You can check out all of Kevin's great work. He's got an article going up basically every day. Pretty much isn't almost. I mean, I say basically every day, but it really is literally every day. I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, he's got awesome stuff all the time. Sean's work is always great. I've got stuff going up that's kind of good sometimes, and Dave's got a lot of cool stuff. So it's now is the time to be checking it out and getting your teams to the fantasy playoffs. So
yeah. And we do have our waiver wire pod that we just started last week on Tuesday
That's
nights.
Right.
So tune in for that too. Live Q&A for waivers. I don't know. We'll be doing 9:15 on Tuesday.
Yeah, 9:15. I think sounds good. Hopefully, one of these days we can pull Hasan away from work, get him to weigh in on the waivers. But yeah, that's a fun one. So make sure you tune in for that and get your waiver questions answered, and we'll do our best on that one. And yeah, we'll talk to you next time.